How is it going? We are back here on Trench Talk after a bit of a hiatus. I feel like I always talk about how busy we both are, but really,
Mhm.
I mean, it's been an eventful couple months for us both personally. So, um, but don't you guys worry. We've been keeping up. Um, got a lot of fun things to talk about. Probably going to be a short episode. That's how these off-season episodes are probably going to be. Uh, Hopefully things will actually happen for us to talk about. But the draft was last weekend, so obviously we can talk about that. But where are my manners? I'm Logan Shanks. This is my co-host Christian Royston, and welcome back to Trip Talk.
Glad to be back.
Yeah,
Finally.
yeah. I think every morning I wake up and I'm just ready for football to be back. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
uh,
I also feel like I
especially with.
haven't been as excited for this draft going into it.
Mhm,
Although after like day two, I was like locked in, dialed.
mhm. Yeah, it was pretty fun to watch. Everything go down last week, especially with some big storylines picking up. Obviously, the Shadur Sanders thing, which I don't think anyone's talking about, so we'll be on the podcast to talk about that.
Yeah, probably.
But we can kind of get right into it if you want to, actually, about the Browns draft. Browns
Mhm.
fan over there, Cowboys fan here. We can kind of focus on those and then get into more of the first round topics, maybe some winners, losers, and that'll be the show for today.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when it comes to the Browns, just got to look at Mel Kiper's draft grade. It really says it all. Best draft. Um, Maybe a little spite from the fall from Shador, but I think the Browns got like a loaded, just top to bottom
Yeah.
draft.
Uh, I mean, people are definitely clowning on them for the double running back and the double quarterback picks. But what I will say about the running backs is that one, Quinshon Judkins is going to be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And then Dylan Sampson going to the fourth round, I was surprised by that. I feel like that was a lot like the Shadur pick, where it's like, okay, well, this guy's still here. We might as well just draft him.
Yeah, it was a value pick, and I feel like
Mhm.
not only that, the Browns are losing their running backs this year,
Yeah.
right?
So
So
I forgot about that. Is Nick Chubb, is he released? Did they release him?
he's a free agent right now,
Okay.
still.
Oh, well, that's right, because he was a second round pick. They extended him. So I forget, like, did his contract just run up or okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought they might have released him and I just completely missed that. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised if they released
Hmm.
him
Yeah,
because
I
of
think he's
injuries and
kind of coming to
everything.
the end of his career,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
But
That's just
I mean,
how.
they've obviously solved that problem.
Yeah, and I saw some people saying they got like the worst Ohio State running back, but they're like, okay, you just. Well, I guess the Browns wanted Thunder and Thunder,
Hmm.
but I feel like adding in Dylan Sampson too, they're just making their own new Thunder and Lightning,
Hmm.
and I feel like honestly, good picks there.
Right. Yeah. And in the mindset, I feel like for that has to be all right. One of these guys has to work out.
Hmm. Or
So,
both.
or both. And if that happens, then, major upside. And you mentioned Mel Kiper's grade of an A plus. And while that is very funny considering all the stuff that he talked about Shadur, I do think he also took into account the draft capital that they got for moving down from 2 to 5.
Hmm.
Because I forgot about that.
Yeah, they get a first round pick next year from a team that I feel like we're all kind of have question marks around them. You know,
At
the
least I
the
think it's going to
Jags.
be at least another top 10 pick for them.
Yeah, I don't really see the Jags improving too much,
Hmm.
especially because they kind of reached to get Travis Hunter. They're pretty
Hmm.
much saying he's worth just coming straight out of college, no NFL experience, 2 first round picks.
Hmm.
And that to me is kind of a little bit of a reach.
Hmm.
But hey, the Browns get some huge draft capital out of that.
Hmm.
And I mean, they still pick up a dog in Mason Graham.
And we talked about this off the podcast, but it was it's interesting going into the draft. You're thinking about, yes, this prospect and Travis Hunter, where the big hype about him, the reason he's going number 2 is because he can play both sides, right? But everyone is missing the fact that he's not going to be able, most likely, not going to be able to just duplicate all those efforts to the NFL. So
Hmm.
really, what you're drafting at number 2 overall is it's gonna be an I feel like it's gonna be an 80-20 guy, whether it's he plays 80% defense, 20% offense, or vice versa. And I think he's a really talented player, and I'm excited to watch him play. But I will agree with you there. I mean, if you really look at it from the outside, number 2 overall for what you're probably going to be getting is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I think the Jags are going to run him more on offense. They said
Mhm,
they'd sprinkle in some defensive snaps there, probably slot him in at the nickel occasionally, kind of like a Cooper DeJean.
mhm,
But I mean, still, when's the last time we had a wide receiver then
mhm.
who got this high of a draft pick, this high of a draft capital? I mean, the last time I can remember is probably Calvin Johnson, and he's
Uh,
definitely not Calvin Johnson.
no, I don't know which one was higher, but I wanna say either Corey Davis or,
Yeah,
Sammy Watkins was, like, top 5 maybe. So,
yeah. I think Corey Davis was like he was up there. Was he like 4 or
I think he
3?
was 4,
Yeah.
which
I mean, we saw how that kind of played out.
yeah, I mean, a little segment on Corey Davis here. I mean, he was fine on the Titans, and then when he went to the Jets, I mean, fair to say he was not good.
No, kind of sucked for me because I invested him heavily in
Mhm.
fantasy for 2 years. Whatever.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, and I don't know about you, but I think really you said, the Jags been saying 8, like mostly offense, some defense. I would flip that.
Yeah. Although it's kind of, I mean, you got to go with like what your team needs,
Mhm.
and probably at the same time, what you see out of him come minicamp, come rookie camp. If he turns out to
Mhm.
be a better corner than wide receiver, stick him on defense more. But maybe he comes out. I mean, we saw how good he is at wide receiver too.
Mhm.
I mean, Shador's probably not hitting that completion percentage without him, but
That's true. Yeah, I think that's mainly the reason that he can play both sides is because like, his ability to I forget, like, what the exact words are, but really, like, not ball control, but you know what I'm trying to say.
mm-hmm.
His eye for the ball, there,
Yeah,
let's say that, is, like, just one of the best I've ever seen.
yeah,
So,
he just has a knack of getting to the ball.
yeah, but moving on for the Browns, I mean, I actually didn't realize that it was like this, until I heard it on a podcast. But not only did they take obviously Dylan Gabriel and then Shadur Sanders, those were the 2 quarterbacks off the board like back to back. So like Dylan Gabriel went in the 3rd, and then no other quarterbacks, then Shadur in the 5th.
Yeah, and I feel like, gosh, who was I watching that? I mean, they predicted that Shador would fall to the 5th somehow.
Mhm.
I think that's one of those predictions where you kind of just say something outrageous and it hits. But I
We've
feel like,
seen that. We've seen that.
yeah, I do feel though, if you slip out of the first, especially with all the teams already picking up their quarterbacks
Mhm.
early on, it's kind of like nobody was really wanting to pick quarterbacks yet.
Mhm.
Because once you saw the Browns pick Dylan Gabriel, I think teams were like, "Oh, we could probably still sit on these quarterbacks and
Mhm.
let them slide a little bit more,"
Right.
which
But
is why we saw no one picked after him.
and you end up getting the guy that I mean, gosh, it is kinda like the movie Draft Day. You end up getting the guy that you wanted all along.
Yeah.
Uh, because you were very big on Shadur Sanders. So talk to
Hmm.
me. What was kind of your mindset on first selecting Dylan Gabriel and then having to wait another day, and then you get Shadur Sanders?
Yeah, it was. It's honestly so weird because I I mean, we had the 5 pick. We had 2 of the top 4 picks in the second round. And I was sitting there like, it's okay. We didn't get Shador. He fell out of the first.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the Steelers were going to pick him up.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
But it was clear that he wasn't their guy. I think we all knew that the Giants weren't going to get him. And that left the Saints. But after the Saints passed on him early on, I was like, well, they're not going to be able to get him before the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go linebacker, running back in the second. And I was like, okay, so that just means we don't want Shador.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, cool, I guess. I mean, they know more. These NFL franchises know more than us, right?
Right.
They know more than the talking heads, all these NFL fans out here. They know more than Mel Kiper. Sorry, Mel. But, I mean, they evaluated Shador. I think all these teams knew what they were getting into if they drafted him. And, I mean, that's something that me as a fan, I don't really care about the head case because it's not my problem. It's theirs. All I see is a talented quarterback and somebody who, with the right mentorship, can lead a team at least to the playoffs, which is a lot to say for the Browns.
It's true.
I mean, my biggest thing is people were saying, oh, he's just not as good as we think he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's saying, oh, this makes sense because he is not a good football player. His talents can't make up for his attitude. I was like, you guys don't know ball.
Right.
I feel like us watching Big 12 football, I've watched a good amount of Colorado games last year because that kind of was like keeping up with the team that was on Iowa State's tail the whole year. I saw Shador Sanders. I saw him play. I saw him make crazy throws, win games. People were saying, oh, he's a 500 quarterback. Colorado had 1 win before he started. Getting a team out of the gutter like that to almost make it to the Big 12 championship game, like they were 1 tiebreaker away from making it to the championship game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's got to count for something.
Yeah. And, I mean, I agree with you there. I think really he does have the talent to. He probably should have been the second quarterback in this draft, as most people were mocking him.
And I think he is you can argue him second or third best.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can see the argument for Jackson Dart above him.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I mean, Tyler Show is not better than him.
No.
Sorry. Dylan Gabriel was not better than him, but I mean, I can see, a little tangent on Dylan Gabriel. I like him as a quarterback.
Yeah.
I have for years. I think he's talented. I mean, he was a Heisman finalist this year. And, I mean, he led Oregon to a very good year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's a proven winner, and he's very talented. I mean, what I've been seeing is like his ceiling. He's almost at his ceiling. But I think he's a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm. And the Browns are now probably one of the most interesting quarterback groups going into this training camp that I'm going to be keeping my eye on. Now we talked about this also off the podcast, but Browns now have 5 quarterbacks in. Gabriel, Sanders. They traded for Kenny Pickett. They signed Joe Flacco, and obviously they have Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. How many of those players do you think they cut, and who do you think they cut?
I think they cut.
Because personally for me, I don't think there's any way that they go into the season with 4 quarterbacks. I think there will likely be either multiple cuts or something goes down.
My only thing is people were like, oh, the Browns have 5 quarterbacks on the roster. Deshaun Watson is not a quarterback on the roster. That's something people need to kind of understand. They really only have 4 going into the year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's probably not going to be able to play a snap this entire season. I mean, he's coming off a second straight Achilles tear during his rehab process. And I think the Browns are kind of just waiting out his contract at this point.
Yeah. So and that's
4.
Yeah, because he'll be on IR for likely the whole year.
Yeah. And I think when you look at it, I don't think the Browns were expecting to draft 2 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I think they got to their final draft pick and they were, just sitting there like, if nobody's going to take Shador, might as well get him for just pennies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting the number 2 overall quarterback in the 5th round, you're saving a ton of money.
Mm-hmm. And I think, lastly, here on Shador, obviously, you never know how all these guys are ever going to pan out. But just looking at the names outside of the Browns above him in Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck, and Jackson Dart, I think that Shador will have the most productive NFL career over those 3 quarterbacks, and that those 3 teams will likely regret passing on him. I get it, the head case, the whatever. Let's hope he's humbled now and they can just move forward.
Yeah. And I feel like, everybody's kind of like blowing it out of proportion a little bit in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he was more confident and it wasn't necessarily his mindset. It's probably instilled by Dion.
Mm-hmm.
Dion's gone into the last 2 seasons telling his son how good he is, and
Mm-hmm.
and then he produces on the field. You could say, oh, maybe that's because his receivers were very talented and they would throw the ball like 85 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
But he still had the highest completion percentage we've seen. I think he had the highest in the FBS this year.
Yep.
And then he passed for over 4,000 yards. So it's like the production's there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's fine for him to be confident. I think the biggest issue wasn't how cocky he was being. It was more so his mentality, which was, again, probably Dion, of if you're not a top 5 pick, then you're not going to get me. So what's the point of me even talking
Right.
to you?
Yeah. And I think it was also, in retrospective, he would probably, and this is just a good lesson to everyone that comes into the draft. Like, Shador, you probably should have went to the Senior Bowl. You probably should have done something at the combine, and
Yeah.
you probably could have interviewed better. I think if
I think the
all 3 of
interviews
those
were
things,
huge.
hmm?
I think the interviews were huge.
Yeah, I think if all 3 of those things change, he probably is a first round quarterback. Especially, you can't just walk into it going like, "Oh, I'm not going to go to the Senior Bowl. I'm not going to throw at the draft, or I'm not going to throw at the combine. I'm not going to do this." Walk into the interviews and not do well.
And my
Last
thing
year,
is,
it just there's some stuff you got to do.
yeah. And I feel like we've seen players like this before.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Johnny Manziel, you look at, even Baker Mayfield,
Yep.
Kind of a personality, fiery personality.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Ryan Leaf. He was way more cocky than Shador could ever dream of. These guys all got picked. Manziel was the lowest at 21 in the
Mm-hmm.
first round. So I feel like teams, maybe learned from that, because if you really look at it, none of those players panned out for the team who drafted them. Baker is now in a resurgence,
Mm-hmm.
but on his 4th team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe that plays into it, and teams are like, maybe this isn't the route to go in our franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
Hey, guys learn, guys change. Look at Baker.
And I will say, outside of Ryan Leaf, I've listened to his podcast, so I don't remember if he did or not. But the other guys you mentioned, like Johnny and Baker, they went to the draft or to the combine and actually did stuff, though.
Yeah,
So
I think these players
you got to give that to them.
Plus, we knew what we were getting out of those players. Like Baker was like the best college football player at the time, and so was Johnny Manziel, and Ryan Leaf was, fighting against Peyton Manning to be the best.
And they were better just overall, they were better winning quarterbacks.
And a little bit more like proven than Shador, who, like, we look at his competition, it's definitely not up there with Jackson Dart's competition or Jalen Milroe, for that case.
Right. I mean, you mentioned Jackson Dart. Apparently, as a Cowboys fan, I'm going to have to be worried about him for the next 15 years. Yeah, not happening.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the John Gruden interview.
No, I did. I actually watched that yesterday, and first of all, they need to keep doing that. They did a really good job on that, especially with. I mean, there was a lot of the quarterbacks there that I didn't know a lot about, and it was interesting to see the guys that I was like bought into and not bought into. Like,
Yeah.
I actually really like Will Howard after watching that video.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, we can do a little segue to Will Howard real quick because he's one of those that I feel like everybody's kind of hyping up right now.
He has a really good chance to actually. I think he will start this like a couple games this year.
He'll probably start most of the year.
Yeah, I think he has a really good chance to do that.
My thing is, as somebody, I mean, we covered Iowa State football. I have seen Will Howard at Kansas State for 2 years now. So,
and then, I mean, wins a national championship with Ohio State.
Yeah. But before that singular year, it's kind of like, I didn't really like what I saw. People are like, oh, he's a Josh Allen replica. I'm like, it really doesn't look like that on the field if you actually watch his film. I mean, yeah, he has the same body, and Ohio State ran him more, but they could because look at their running backs. Right? So, I mean, he might pan out, but it's tough to say because me personally, I don't have a lot of like solid film to go off of. It was just a lot of, I could be biased against Kansas State too.
Those other John Gruden, did you watch any of those John Gruden QB camp videos?
Not really. I saw clips of some of the higher picks. Yeah, I saw Jackson Dart's. It was mainly a lot of like snap count stuff.
Yeah. Which those are interesting. I think that's probably going to be a rude awakening to some of those guys, especially Jackson Dart, where you can't just clap.
You've been clapping for 4 years?
That was funny. That was funny.
You
Same
got a
with
dummy clap?
Which to me,
he's like, oh, well, I'll be damned.
Yeah,
he's like, no shit. Okay.
Who else was that? I think it was either like Quinn Ewers or Will Howard. Also, like it was just clapping, which I'm like, how do you go to these? How do you go to these?
Now.
I know, but how do you go to these big universities, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Texas, and all you do to get the ball is just.
Yeah. And I mean, Will Howard had a snap count at Kansas State.
Yeah, that's right.
They went through that, but I don't know. I mean, that's just the snap count is kind of dying.
So get ready for it. Moving on to the Cowboys draft. Very underwhelming for me at first glance. I'm going through, or I was, watching all the first round picks. I remember we draft Tyler Booker. I'm pissed for like an hour. And then I
feel like you should have known about that one.
Well, that's what
I saw everybody mocking a guard to them.
I was talking, like everyone that I was talking to, I was like, I really want a wide receiver, but I know, obviously with the retirement of Zach Martin, we're probably just going to play it safe and get a guard because Jerry hates to reach and he loves to just play it safe.
Like, plus, well, him like before the draft when he was talking about it, people are also talking about him. They're like, oh, you should take a running back. And he was like, running back isn't our problem. Yeah, we had very poor run production last year, but that's because the offensive line wasn't good. He's like, you do realize you have to have a good offensive line to have a good running back.
Right. And
that's
that
the
is
only reason that they've had good running backs in the past is because their offensive line was very good.
I think just as a fan, that kind of overshadowed my want to like get excited for a first round or even a second round receiver. So when we took Tyler, I was like, oh man, like, why are we doing this? Like, it just felt like a waste. But then I'm hearing all the hype about him. I'm reading all this stuff. I'm watching his film. I'm like, all right, I'm actually ready for this guy. And he wants to be there. He looks like, just sounds like a football guy. So I'm really excited for him.
Like Micah Parsons is in love with him already.
Yes. So, and then, you pick up the edge rusher from Boston College who slipped down to the second. A lot of people are mocking him in the first round. I think he's going to be a lot of fun. And then we were talking off camera about Siobhan Ravel, who I'm watching him. He was a really fun guy to watch at Eastern Carolina and got hurt. People are saying probably could have been like a first round pick. So really good value there in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, they just went for like best available most of the time, which is very good because they got a lot of really good players. They also picked up 2 running backs.
Exactly, and that'll be big. You know, not sure about the Clemson guy, how much he's actually going to play. You never know with these 7th round picks.
That's true.
Unless you're Brock Purdy, who's about to get paid $50 million. But Jaden Blue, super fun player to watch at Texas. So I'm really I think we signed Javonte Williams and I believe Miles Sanders as well. So super excited about that. But hopefully Blue kind of comes in there and can take over more as the season goes on. I really don't want to just waste his rookie year and rely on the veterans.
And especially in like the backfield, I think he'll catch a lot of passes this year because I mean he's a shifty threat. So it's like, you know, you don't really have a loaded receiver room, but you got a lot of running backs, so you can really use them how you want.
That's true, and that's about it. I mean, after that, from Blue through the rest of the draft, I was like, you know, take what you want. You never know with these 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. So
3 7-round picks.
Yeah, so you know maybe one of them turns out to be something, but 2 defensive tackles in the 7th round. I don't even know how NFL GMs go about it. Like when you have these 7th round picks, are you kind of just like, we'll take a flyer on this kid?
Yeah, I mean, who said it?
A lot of these 7th round picks who might not even make the roster.
Yeah, because my thing was like somebody said it might have been either Jerry Jones or like Bill Belichick. I don't remember who, but they were like, the first 2 days are easy. It's who you pick in day 3 that really separates you from coming back to pick early in day 1 or winning it all. So
that's true. That takes me back to even talking about like these 7th round picks that might even not make the roster. Like, do you remember when like Brock Purdy got drafted? And like, I don't know about you, but I was genuinely surprised when he made not even like the practice squad, he made the active roster. I remember being very surprised. I thought he was going to get cut for sure.
That's also like the one everybody's like, I have no way to prove this, but I was telling people that Brock Purdy was going to be the last pick in the draft. And everybody thinks I'm lying, but I swear, because this obviously was like years ago. Like what? Because it was before you were on our desk. But like, yeah, I told my old sports editor because they were asking like, I saw one mock draft that had a mock to the last pick, and I was like, I'm sold on that. So when my sports editor was like, all right, guys, do you think Brock Purdy's going to be drafted? And he came to me, I was like, I think he's going to be drafted. I think he'll be like the last pick. That's where I got him. And they're like, and half the people are like, no, he's not going to get drafted. And it came down to last pick. I was like, dang it, he's not going to be drafted. And then
I remember
was drafted.
He was. I was not drafted, but I was sitting at my apartment in my old apartment. And I remember I was sitting on the couch. I just had the draft on. I think me and the boys were just kind of watching the rest of it, doing whatever. And his name got called. I was like, oh crap. Well, look at that. And years down the road, now he's probably going to get paid $50 million. So
yeah. Good for him.
Yeah, let's hope Rocco. Did you see? Actually, Rocco Becht has been mocked in some of these first rounds next year.
First rounds?
I know, right?
Well, here's my thing. Brock Purdy was getting mocked in first rounds before his senior year.
That's true, but Rocco Becht is going into his redshirt junior year.
Yeah.
I would love to ask Brock if he ever regrets coming back for his senior year. I would assume he would say no because, he got to live out one more year at Iowa State, and he seems like he
Plus,
really liked Iowa State, but I don't know.
yeah, and who's even saying that he's going to the 49ers if he comes
That's
out
true, yeah.
early?
What if he ends up being like, I don't think he would have been a first-round pick. What if he ends up being a second-round pick and he has to spot start and he's just not that good?
Yeah, or he gets to a team that he just isn't even allowed to start on. He just makes the practice squad right away.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just came to a perfect situation.
Yeah, I mean, this could be completely wrong, but I think the year before he got drafted, I think that was the year the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. What if they go with Brock Purdy there, and he just doesn't work out,
Yeah.
But
yeah, because he would have been reached on.
Oh yeah, he would have been.
Somebody would have reached.
He would have for sure. And yeah. Anyway, Brock Purdy segment over. Real quick, we can hit maybe we'll stick in the first round here. Some first round picks that you liked, and maybe some first round picks that you didn't like.
I mean, I feel like everybody can say they love the early picks. I think my favorite pick up there was Will Campbell to the Patriots.
Yep.
I watched a lot of interviews with him in this last week, and that guy is going to be a 10-time Pro Bowler, play every single snap, and make the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, he's literally what we were talking about Joe Alt last year. Or 2 years ago. I can't remember.
Yeah. Oh, but Christian is arm length.
Yeah. And then you look at film and you're like, what? Or even him talking about it, he's like, I've been putting guys in body bags like every single season, so I don't know why this arm length thing is coming in all of a sudden. Real quick,
he made a really good point, and it was really funny. Like, it's funny at first. People were posting it because it's funny, but it's true. He was like, if you're a outside linebacker or a defensive lineman and you're getting one sack a game, you're going to be a first round pick. If you're an offensive lineman, you give up one sack a game, you're going to be working at Amazon.
Yeah.
That's true. And I mean,
it's like nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, but it is a good, that makes sense, but it's also like, it's a good point. We probably should judge it differently, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense because, he just doesn't give up sacks. Here's the thing. He has short arms, sure, but he has super strong hands and quick hands.
Mm-hmm.
So he can keep defenders at a distance or reroute them however he wants.
Yeah. And if you're Drake May, you got to love it when they pick him, they do the little post-draft interview right after, and he's like, I will die on the field for that kid.
With tears. He's crying. He's like, I will die for him.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Drake May's like, I'm never getting sacked again. Sweet.
I will die on the field. I'm like, dude, this kid's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, real quick, I do want to talk about maybe a pick that I didn't like so much. I hope you agree with me on this. Colston Loveland at 10. Bears, what are we doing?
Yeah, he wasn't even the best tight end on the board.
Nope.
However, here's my thing. The Bears, they did a lot of work on their awesome offensive line in the offseason. So they didn't really need to invest high in an offensive lineman. My thing is, to be honest, they didn't really have that many weapons on offense, which I was telling everybody before last season, because everybody's hyping them up. They're like, oh my gosh, Caleb Love's going into, or not Caleb Love, still in the basketball ring. Caleb Williams is going into the season with the best offensive weapons we've ever seen from a rookie.
This is last year? Last year or this year?
Last year.
Okay, yes.
When he was drafted? It was like everybody, because of his receivers, tight ends, running backs. Yes. But then we're like, oh, maybe these players aren't as good as we thought. I'm like, yeah, what were we seeing in them before?
Right.
So I don't mind them going a tight end, especially because the Bears love playing multiple tight ends, and they're easy for young quarterbacks to. They're like safety valves, right? And also just they're like a mix. This guy, I think, is like, yeah, he's 6'6", like 250. I mean, you can kind of just like,
I've heard the blocking is not great though.
yeah, but he's just like a big receiver. So
Like
it's not like they went at tight end,
an
you
Evan
know?
Ingram.
Yeah, like an Evan Ingram. So I mean, I don't hate it. I think obviously they had way more needs than tight end.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, if you love your guy, you love your guy, and you go get him.
Some other, I'm just gonna rally off some quick ones that I love. Emeka Ibuka to the Bucks.
I
Love
know
that for
you
Baker
love
and
that dude.
them. Where
You were high on him.
yep. I'm gonna mispronounce this. The Texas corner, Jade Barron, Jade to the Broncos.
Maybe.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Pair alongside Patrick Surtain.
Yep. And then last one here, Josh Simmons falling to the Chiefs. I think that's going to be big for them as well.
Yeah, I cannot believe the league let the Chiefs get Josh Simmons. I'm like, oh, sweet. So,
Well, it's kind of like the
Chiefs are
same
set up.
thing. It's kind of like the same thing with the Eagles, who were able to get Jahad Campbell because, of course, they just get one of the best defensive players in the draft again.
Yeah. I mean, here's my kind of like questionable ones were the Falcons getting 2 picks and pretty much picking 2 edge rushers.
Yep.
Despite having needs everywhere on the team. And it felt like they went all defense this draft.
2 edge rushers in the first draft too, where you're kind of like on both of them.
Yeah, and I know Jalen Walker's listed as linebacker, but he's an edge rusher. So it's like, I mean, yeah, I'm just not sold on them like at all. I do love. There's a couple wide receivers I loved in the first round. The Panthers getting Tet McMillan.
Crazy that they went him. That was really crazy for me.
I mean, he was the best receiver in the draft.
He was.
In my
People,
eyes.
I mean, people were really underestimating where, like, just how high he could go.
And I think he's going to come out as like the best receiver in the last few years. You know, maybe that's a big take, hot take right now.
That's a big label, but you know, you never know.
He has the talents, and I mean, the Panthers loaded up. They gave Bryce Young a lot of options, so I think they're ready to get out of the dumpster.
Real quick, we can hit on this before you go, or before we get out of here. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, baby. What a great story.
Both to the Texans, joining Xavier Hutchinson. So Texans now have 3 Iowa State receivers.
Who some people are saying X might get cut. I hope that doesn't happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's been fine, and he was a 6th-round pick. So,
yeah, I feel like they really haven't gotten a ton out of him. I feel like they've used him as much as they want to, but he's not going to be like high up on like, oh, we have to keep him.
Yes, and but I hope he does, because, like you said, they've used him. Don't you remember when we would do Cyclones in the NFL, and it'd be like, Xavier Hutchinson had 3 carries. We're like, why are they using him as a running back with like jet sweeps and shit?
And I like that a lot. But now they have Jalen Knoll.
Well, no, I was like, throw him the ball.
Yeah, but at least he was getting in there. Like, they weren't going to throw him the ball. They had so many like wide receiver talents.
That's true. But yeah, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, I think that's awesome. Now, from an outsider's view, not an Iowa State fan, kind of weird to take 2 receivers from the same school, but
they're like if they're like best 2 available though, especially because they played such different games, and you lose Stephon Diggs. You don't know about Tank Dell this year because his injury is very late. Nico Collins has been kind of banged up the last couple of years. So
I was actually surprised that Jalen Knoll did fall to the 3rd. I think that's appropriate for him, but I'm surprised on some of the people taking over him, like Beck from TCU, you know, the Arkansas kid, the Illinois guy is good, but there's a couple. Trey Harris is probably a better receiver than him. I think all those guys are probably better prospects, but I think Jalen Noel is probably going to end up being better than those guys. That's bias fan from, but just saying.
Yeah, but also I wasn't sold on like some of these receivers. But I mean, hey, there was like 6 receivers taken before Jalen Noel between Jaden Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, hey, at least Jaden Higgins was taken pretty early.
Yeah, and though it was those guys and Darian Porter were all 3 of those guys taken before the first Iowa guy got taken off the board. So
yeah, which I mean, to hit on the Steelers real quick, just a little bit. I think they had a really fun draft, but also taking Caleb Johnson and Yaya Black, 2 Iowa guys. I mean, the Iowa Steelers now.
I do think that's a good pickup for the Steelers is Caleb Johnson. I think he'll be good there for sure. We sadly got to see him cook Iowa State 2 times, but they only walked out with a win one of those times. So,
but he did all he could.
Yeah, and he was a Heisman candidate for like the first 4 weeks of the season. So,
which whatever I feel like the people that are running any type of rankings or projections are just Iowa fans or Big Ten fans. I don't know.
Probably Big Ten.
Yeah.
That's going to be it for us here today. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate it. We'll be back with more next week. Hopefully some more news happens and we have some more off-season stuff to talk about. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time.